Coming up on this week's podcast, Sony held a short press conference at the Paris Games Week, and we'll talk about some of the cool stuff they showed.
And we had arguably the biggest new game release of the year. That's right, it's Call of Duty time.
Yes, and while we waited for the Xbox servers to come back up, we also played some other games which we'll talk about.
Now, come on, we try to keep things positive around here.
Yeah, and I'm positive that the Xbox servers had a problem.
Fair enough. Cue the music. Greetings, fellow gamers, and welcome to the Silent Majority Gamers podcast. This is episode number 11. I'm Limey Geek.
And I'm Insomniac Matt.
And this will be the last episode before the Xbox One X is released. Very excited, can't wait. Actually, by the time this podcast posts, the console will probably be out. I've spent the last week downloading every Xbox One X enhanced game demo that I can find, so I've got lots of cool stuff to try when the console arrives.
Nice.
But in addition to that, we've got some other games we've been playing this week, so let's roll right into what we're playing. Starting with the biggest game release of the year, this juggernaut that is Call of Duty. So Call of Duty World War II was released this week, and we've had a chance to play it. Not as much as we would have liked.
Yeah.
There were some issues. They did have some server problems for the first couple of days. Seemed to affect Xbox mostly. Yeah. I saw a lot of complaints online from other Xbox players. But the developers, Sledgehammer Games, when they've mentioned server restarts and fixes, they've said those are applying to all platforms. So I think there's been problems across the board. I think it's just worse on Xbox. Kind of unfortunate for a big release like this, and not really that common anymore. Like most of the big new releases recently haven't suffered from those kinds of issues. I think of Destiny 2, which was a pretty smooth release, really.
Yeah, that was almost seamless.
So it's never fun when this happens. I mean, the developers don't plan for these kinds of things. Making games is hard, and making an infrastructure that's going to support millions of people all logging in simultaneously is not easy to do. So that was a little disappointing. But we did manage to get in. We have managed to play a bunch.
Yeah, and to be fair, it gave me an opportunity that I may not have taken in the first few days, and that was to play the very cool single-player campaign. Also managed to play a little mini-game called Air 4220.
Now. Yeah.
All right. So let me just say, that single-player campaign, really cool. Really enjoyed it. It's been a while since I've stormed the beaches of Normandy, because as with the previous Call of Duties, when they were all World War II style, there's always a level. Everybody's done a Normandy level. Mm-hmm. This was intense. This was very intense. And I love the fact that you now have medkits. None of this regenerating health stuff. The devs were saying that this is not a future soldier. You have not been trained to the utmost. So regenerating health does not make sense. You're an 18-year-old kid or what have you, panicking and freaking out on the beaches of Normandy. You're going to need a health kit, or a med kit, which I really liked. I loved that concept. I got through the first couple of levels, and I'm really enjoying it. Now, of course, once the servers came back online for multiplayer, I stopped playing the campaign, and that is no fault of the campaign whatsoever. It's the fact that I love the multiplayer.
Yeah, I played through the first chapter of the campaign, and the whole med pack and health system really makes you approach things differently, rather than just rushing in to every battle and every engagement and not really caring. It really makes you be more strategic about things and think about when you're going to pop out of cover or not. You sort of looking at your health, and do I use a med pack now or do I wait? And you really are watching that health level, and then trying to strategically use your med kits to health up. And you're just much more careful about jumping out into the open and getting hit.
You can't go nuts and then, I'm just going to hide behind this small box for 30 seconds while I get my health back to normal and then go do it again.
Right. So it makes every shot count, and even when you do pop out from cover, you want to get some good hits and then hide again, right? So it does have a very different feel that way.
I find that it makes it more satisfying as well. Once you get through it and you do a good job of it and you're nailing headshots, it's much more satisfying knowing that you could die at any second, sort of thing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree.
It was really it looks really good. Yeah, like you, once the multiplayer servers were working, I jumped into multiplayer, and we've had some fun with that too.
We have. What I like about this one is that the pre-lobby. Let's start off with the pre-lobby. You go into headquarters, HQ, and in HQ you're running around and you can buy orders, which are like mini missions to do. So I picked up get 15 SMG kills, get 15 assault rifle kills, win 25 deathmatch matches, things like that, which reward you with supply drops, which you can also open in the HQ. Also in the HQ is a brilliant feature is the score streak. Testing.
Training,
training for that. So basically for people like me who are never going to get that 20 kill score streak, I can still check it out. And as well, what I like is that, if you've ever played the later games where you get to pick your score streaks, you pick one, you're not sure what it does, you don't know how to control it the first time you get it, it takes you 20 games to finally get, 10 kills in a row or whatever, and you call in this really badass score streak and you miss completely because you have no idea what you're doing.
Yep.
So I love the fact that you can, right? I love the fact that you can try it out first. I think it's a really cool feature. This whole HQ, shared social space. While in some games, such as like Destiny and things like that, I could take it or leave it. I really like the Call of Duty version of it.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. The other thing they have in there is the firing range, which is nice too. You can go, try out different weapons and see how they handle and that kind of thing. There's a 1v1 pit where you can challenge other people to. It's really short timing. I'm sure it's 30 seconds or a minute. Like it's a really short rounds.
It's 3 kills.
Yeah, it's first to 3 kills. So very very quick little 1v1 challenge you can do there. And there's a leaderboard and stuff in there too. So it's it's a neat social space. I suspect that's the part of the game that's actually led to some of the connection and server issues.
Well, they made an update.
They actually
and all
updated
of a sudden
it.
Things started working nicely.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's a really cool feature. I really like that you can pop back into that headquarters area even between matches on multiplayer. So while you're waiting for the next match to start, in addition to messing with your classes and that kind of stuff, you can actually go back to the headquarters, pick up new orders, or open your supply crate as well. So that's cool.
And one last thing in the to the HQ was that there is a theater in there, and you can watch competitive matches, which I thought was so cool. Like, really? For somebody who doesn't play competitively in that way, I think it's really fun to watch sometimes. I think it's very neat. And I heard someone else mention it, that, that the hopes there is that it expands the people who wouldn't necessarily do competitive play like that to get themselves interested. And it's only nothing but good stuff for the community, which I think is great.
Yep. As for the game itself, it's been pretty cool. I mean, we played the beta fairly extensively, and we gave a lot of impressions of that. One thing that stood out to me is just how awesome the maps are in this one. I really like the variety in the maps and the locations. I find they're all very interesting and different. They don't meld together. Some previous Call of Duties, you couldn't really... the maps weren't distinctive enough, and they all used the same color palette, and then you weren't sure which map you were on half the time. I find these all very distinct and different in interesting areas.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. With the beta, we're playing the same, 2 maps? I think it was? It was 3 maps, sorry. 3 maps. Same 3 maps. And, first day of the beta, I was having fun. By the last day of the beta, I'm like, oh, give me another map. And I wasn't sure how I was going to receive these and how I was going to play them. But going through, getting, several hours in last night, I believe it was. Yeah, several hours in last night. Really fun, really enjoyable. They've changed just a few things with the beta. Like I like the time between matches now. Before I felt it was too quick. I couldn't do anything. In between a match, you try and change your class up or equip something that you just unlocked, and I'm all of a sudden in the game. But it's not too long that you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for the next match to start. Overall, super enjoyable. Want to play some more.
Yeah, so we will definitely continue playing that going forward.
It's always a good sign when I want to play more.
Yep. So we also had the chance this week to play Need for Speed Payback, the latest in the Need for Speed series. The game actually releases next week, but we were able to give it a try due to the 10-hour trial through EA Access. And man, this is almost a throwback to the Burnout days.
Yeah, big time. Wow.
Racing game, open world, but you have I'm calling it sort of the spirit of Burnout in there with the way that you can ram into your opponent's cars and take them out through takedowns, and it does that slow-mo camera pan when you take out another car and that kind of thing. So it's kind of cool. Haven't gotten too far with it yet, but what I've played so far I've really enjoyed. I mean, you've got fancy cars and speed, and you've got sort of this open world idea as well, and different missions you can take, and I've been enjoying it so far.
Yeah, one of my first takedowns, I hit a cop, and I hit I don't know if it was an old lady, a dog, or a speed bump. I don't know. But we kind of both went up into the air, and the camera panned, and all I saw was sparks and everything flying at my face. It was intense. It was pretty wild. Definitely more of your arcade racer style.
Yeah.
Which
they're not big on realism.
No,
this one, no.
Which I really like because it gives you a good contrast to something like Forza, right? So you could potentially own both of those, and they're still two very different games.
Yep.
So with Need for Speed, there is definitely a story that they're trying to weave in there, where you have a crew of three of you plus your mechanic. Right, so and you hop between the three different people, and so you're driving different cars, different types of cars. There's, and I wish I could remember the different types. There's racing cars, there's touring cars, there's drifting, there's off-roading.
Yeah.
So different vehicles for different situations, and again, you play as the different characters depending on that situation. So I thought that was really cool. I'm playing it more than I thought I was going to, and again, it's because of that Burnout feel. Burnout is probably my favorite racing game.
Yeah, it's my favorite racing game series.
Right.
Yeah.
Burnout 3 Takedown, I think it was.
Yep.
It's my favorite game.
And then Burnout Revenge was good as well. Revenge. Yeah, those two are probably
the first one with the crash feature, which I
the Crash Junction stuff. Yeah.
It definitely feels like an updated version of a Burnout game. So you can't go wrong there. And like you said, all the nice exotic cars you could think of. Very shiny game. Very shiny looking game. Very crisp looking. I think with some of the takedowns and the slowdowns and things like that, you get a bit of a blur effect. I don't know if that's their graphics technique or what that is. I like it. I think it's very cool. Cannot wait to see the enhanced version if they're going to bring that up to 4K and or HDR or anything like that on the Xbox One X. That'll look unbelievable.
Yeah, it should be cool.
So other than those releases this week, anything else that you've been playing? Have you had a chance to play anything else?
Well, I'm still working my way through Shadow of War.
Still, yeah.
Which just loving it. Great game still. I'm getting towards the end. It's one of those ones where the end game is, it's a bit of a grind, but I haven't really found it that much at all because the game's so fun.
Yeah.
It hasn't really been a problem. So I'm at the point where I feel like I could make a push to the end if I really wanted, but I don't really want to yet because I'm enjoying it so much. So still playing through that. It's a game that I will probably go back and play again on a higher difficulty.
Okay, yeah.
Next. And that's probably one of the highest compliments I can pay a game because very few games do I play through them more than once. So this one I really want to. I can't wait to keep playing it.
Nice. Okay.
What about you?
Still hacking through Assassin's Creed Origins. And in a similar vein, I am still loving it. And 25, 30 hours in now, must be.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if I could make that slog to the end because I don't know where the end is. I know I have about 4 main missions left to finish off some assassinations, but I know there's more to it. And I'm expecting more targets to show up after I'm done this round. And in a similar vein, I'm not bored of it. I could keep going. I'm still getting sidetracked. Here's, my mission is over here. And again, I'm going off sideways to check out other areas. I also feel that even though, one of my missions is rated for like level 20 and I'm at level 25, I don't feel like those missions are going to be so easy I need to do it right away. The leveling progression is mainly, it's going to make the difference between, am I going to be able to one-shot headshot with a bow and arrow versus is it going to take 2 shots, right? So I don't feel like I'm overpowered for these missions, which is why I don't mind getting sidetracked on the way to something. So far so great. I've come across some of the naval battles, and the story is very interesting. And what I like about this one is that I'm actually paying attention for once, maybe. But I understand what's going on. I get the story that's in Egypt and the characters, and they haven't shown you. I mean, I think I've gone out of the Animus twice. In the 30 hours to play as the future character, which, again, no spoilers, but it's not what you think.
Okay.
It's cool. So, but yeah, still playing through that. And I think I played maybe 2 games of NBA. I'm right at the playoffs, so I'm trying to get through the playoffs for my NBA 2K18 career. So really it's been a juggling of Assassin's Creed, NBA, and Call of Duty.
Yeah,
a little bit of Need for Speed on the side.
I've been throwing in the occasional NBA game as well, because that's just it's still a fun game to keep coming back to in between other stuff.
So one other thing that I forgot to mention is that they had some releases on the backwards compatible side for Xbox, going back to the OG Xbox, the original box, with things like KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, and my absolute favorite game of that generation is Ninja Gaiden. And Ninja Gaiden Black is out for the original Xbox, and so I grabbed that. It was $10.
Yeah.
Right? And man, 3-4 hours in, I had to play it. I couldn't put it down. Love that game. Love it. It holds up. It still does. The intro video, maybe not as much, right? You see a lot of jagged edges, but once you get into the gameplay looks better than the cutscenes. Whereas, with the original Xbox, they were interchangeable almost.
Okay.
It looks like they've again, it's the black version, so they, it's up some updated textures and things like that. But it still holds up. I could play through that game, and I will play through that game very happily, and really enjoying it. The only concern I have is, how did we accept that horrible camera control back in the day? It's terrible. Like, if a game came out with this kind of camera now, it'd be blasted. Like, it's awful, but the game's just so fun. Like, you gotta just stick with it. You know what I mean?
I'm actually really tempted by Knights of the Old Republic, because I never actually played that one. I must admit, it's a classic, but I've never played it.
Do it.
I'm really considering that for $10. And again, it looks, from the screenshots and the stuff I've seen, it holds up pretty well, because on the Xbox One it's able to do extra anti-aliasing, and it doesn't look as bad as you think it would for being that old. And
I think that's probably what they did with Ninja Gaiden, because again, it looks shockingly good for a 10-year-old title.
Yeah, I might give that one a try.
You really should.
Yep. So this week, Sony held a fairly brief press conference at the Paris Games Week, and I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what Paris Games Week was, or even that it even existed, until I heard that Sony was running a press conference there.
Paris, Japan? What?
I have no idea. Anyway, there was a press conference. They streamed it online, and they showed a whole bunch of cool stuff.
They did. They really did. So I actually have notes. It's like almost I came prepared.
Most unlike you.
I know. Don't tell anyone. But I wanted to get down, what I saw, because I have a PS4 Pro, and I was really there for 2 games, which they did show. So we'll get to it. First of all, they opened up with a game called Ghost of Tsushima, which, when it first started, I thought Onimusha. And I don't know if you ever played the Onimusha games. They're done by Capcom. Almost a precursor to the Souls games. It's like this for third-person action. There's some stealth elements to it as well. But it was a samurai game, basically. This one by Sucker Punch Games. And, man, it looked really cool. And I think that was the debut trailer for it. So no one's ever seen anything about this yet. I am very interested to see what comes next. But it looked real pretty and had really pretty trees. But it was a very quick cutscene. So, not much to talk about other than the fact that this game, and if you know what I'm talking about when I say Onimusha, you'll be as excited as I am, because those were awesome games. So that's Ghost of Tsushima. Next up, they had Jim Ryan come out and talk about the power of the PlayStation 4, and only spoke for about 10 minutes, and then it was sizzle reel game after game after game after game after game. So I just wrote some notes on each ones that came out. The first one they showed was called Concrete Genie, which I dubbed a super weird wall drawing game. So, you're playing as this character who has a giant paintbrush, and he's painting on the walls. And what it looks like is that, he's doing it from a template. You can pick a whole bunch of templates, parts of a template, like a head, a body, feet, legs, whatever. You choose that and you paint that on the wall. But it looks like those paintings will help you solve puzzle. It's like a puzzle game.
Yeah, it's like the paintings come to life, right?
Yeah,
and we'll help
very
you
colorful.
Or do stuff.
Yeah,
it was
very colorful.
Weird,
It's super weird. Yeah. Super weird. But I mean, Sony. But I'm interested. That piqued my interest. It looked very pretty, and I'd like to know more about it. Again, they didn't show too much, other than it's coming next year, 2018 release date. The next one they showed was a game called Erica. And this looks like something that plays very similar to the Heavy Rain series. I don't know if you saw that. It's like an interactive movie, basically. So, it looks gorgeous, right? But it has these moments where, on screen, where you pick a choice while you're in the situation that you're doing. So, I think at one point there was this guy who seemed to be the confronting the title character. I don't know if that's true or not, but, he had a knife up to Erica, and there was an option to trust that person or slash that person. So it's like two very different choices. Yeah. So, I would imagine that depending on the outcome, it changes your game up. But, it looked very interesting. And again, very, very good looking game. Very good looking game. So, unfortunately, again, not a lot of gameplay shown.
Right.
But what they did show for gameplay was a slew of like a dozen PSVR titles. So that's what they got into next. And it was very quick succession of gameplay of these VR titles. So now I've played Rift. I don't have PSVR. I would love to own one. They are not cheap.
Nope.
And my next purchase is an Xbox One X. So sorry, PSVR, you're going to have to wait. And I won't go through the full list of the games that they showed. I don't think anything that was too crazy that jumped out at me. A couple of things. There was Bout of Blood, which looked like a space boat pirate game, which looked kind of cool. There was something called Stifled, which was this black and white art game. The art was beautiful. It was all black and white, though. And I find that when you're doing games like that, you can make them look a little nicer because you don't have to worry about a lot of different effects. And that suits the needs of the PSVR very nicely, I think. So they also had something called Transference, which looked like a really super creepy horror game. And that's what you want with PSVR. We want a VR game. Not what you want, but that's going to show it off. It's
not what I want. I got
to going to show it off, right?
I'm not a fan of horror games, and a horror game in VR, it just sounds like a nightmare to me.
Right? We played Elite Dangerous in VR. Yeah. And you even warned me. You're like, the first time I ever played it, you're like, okay, just don't go crazy to start off with, right? You gotta get your balance and your bearings. Oculus Rift on PC, Elite Dangerous, very beautiful looking game, best looking VR game I've ever seen, right? And here's me like, it's fine. I yank the joystick back and do a barrel roll. Like I had to sit down for a second. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sweating. So yeah, a horror game in VR could be detrimental to your pants.
Not for
but it looked interesting. So they had Ultra Wings, Pilot Wings. They had Ultra Wings, which looked like Pilot Wings. Right, I gave
Pilot
one
Wings
away.
in VR.
Yeah. Right. And then something called Eden Tomorrow, which actually looked like it had the best production value out of all the games I saw. So it's kind of a fantasy kind of game. And again, these were anywhere between 10 and 20 second snippets, so unfortunately it didn't give you much there. But
well, it's always tough to show off VR games when you're not in VR, right? It's very difficult to be able to get a real sense of what the game is.
Yeah.
And so much of VR is the experience of being there, because graphically the games tend to be not as taxing and not as advanced, because of just the processing required for VR.
Yeah.
And so when you look at a trailer for some of these VR games, they don't always give the best impression,
right?
Because you can't really in a trailer give you the real sense of what the game is going to be like.
Very true.
I mean, it's a problem that VR has, is how to market itself.
Yeah, and you, like you said, I mean, you need to feel it to know if you like it, because 90% of a VR game is the feel.
Yeah.
So then they had two more games. One was Monsters of the Deep, which is a Final Fantasy spin-off. Right, so it's the Final Fantasy characters from Final Fantasy 15, I believe, fishing. So, because Square Enix, that's why.
Okay.
Then the last thing they showed a longer trailer for Blood and Truth. Now that looked pretty cool. It was like this London gangster, Bond meets, Snatch meets, like these a Guy Ritchie movie. I don't know. It appeared like it was an on-rails shooter. Just because, again, with the way VR is, movement is done very differently. A lot of games, things like Skyrim, right? You point to the part of the ground you want to go to, and you click a button, and there you go. So it was hard to tell the movement, but it looked kind of like on rail, but very pretty looking game. And like I said, it was, like the London gangster shooter game. So I thought that was pretty cool. So this big PSVR sizzle reel, out of the, like I said, dozen or so games, I think 2 or 3 really jumped out at me. So that was very cool.
Cool.
So after that, I think Jim Ryan came back out and said, here's, get it.
It's a fly in here.
Do you want some chopsticks there, Mr. Miyagi?
No, we're good.
Okay.
We're good. I think I got them.
Or you pushed them over to my side. Oh. Anyways. So they came out on stage and said that they had, I think it was the 6 following games have Sony exclusive
content.
Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Which, some of these games I didn't realize what was the exclusive. And they like to get sneaky with that. I know, I say both companies, all companies like to do that when they say it's only on Xbox, only on PlayStation 4, where it's a multi-platform game. But they snuck in something like an additional map or a gun skin for Call of Duty that's only on the Sony. Destiny is a big one. I had a friend who asked me, I'm thinking about getting Destiny. I'm like, oh yeah, it's great. I got it for the Xbox. It's out for Xbox? Yeah, it's out for Xbox. Yeah. Right? So it's the marketing is very crazy for some of these games. Anyways, point being is they did show a couple of AAA titles here. First one being Far Cry, the new Far Cry. Man, that looks fun. It is fully co-op.
Yeah, and that was the point that made me much more interested in this game. I've always enjoyed the Far Cry games, but to be honest, the setting for this one didn't really appealed to me as much, so I was kind of on the fence on it. But the fact that they said now, the entire single player can be done in a co-op means we can play through it together, which really does appeal to me. Right, and we just finished when I say just a couple of months ago, we finished the Ghost Recon Wildlands. Yeah, full co-op. Yeah. Right, start to finish co-op. And I agree with you. The setting for the new Far Cry, I'm like, because to me Far Cry is a jungle or an exotic beach or something like that, right? And Suburbia wasn't exactly my first choice of a Far Cry game. But again, when you go through the whole thing with co-op, it opens up a lot of possibilities and a lot of fun. Yes, for sure. Yeah, that one should be a lot of fun. They then showed a bit of information on the next Destiny 2 DLC, which is the Curse of Osiris. This will be the first DLC. Yeah, so I'm obviously looking forward to that because you and I play that. Yep. So I'm looking forward to getting my teeth back into Destiny 2 because I haven't played it in a couple of weeks now. Obviously got some other games to play. Yeah. So they're stacking up. So pick and choose our battles. But when this DLC comes out, I will be there. I didn't quite get what the exclusive part was for that. So I think they worded it such that here's a bunch of games that have exclusive content for PlayStation. even though the content we're showing might not be exclusive.
Yeah.
Right? I think that was the gist of it, was here's games that we've got some exclusives on, but they weren't really highlighting the exclusives. I must admit, this part of the conference, I was starting to get very disappointed like I was with the Microsoft Gamescom conference, where they were just showing stuff we've already seen.
Yes.
Right?
True.
It was like, here's Far Cry 5, here's Destiny 2 and some of the others that are on the list. It's like we've seen these things before. At least we're kind of showing some new stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, that was a very quick video too.
Yes, it was.
And then they showed Monster Hunter World, which, I mean, it's fantasy third person. It's got some alternate history dinosaurs in there. Didn't really show much, other than the fact that the exclusive for this is that you can play as Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Right.
Which, such an awesome game. That's such a good game. Horizon's one of my game of the year. It was earlier on in the year that I played it, but I don't want to forget that I played it. When it comes to the end of the year and we're talking about game of the year, that is definitely on the list. Then they showed Call of Duty World War II, this one right here. Ooh. And their exclusive was just the Time DLC, right? The first DLC pack is going to come out on Sony first. I think it's 30 days, and then it comes to the Xbox, right?
Yep.
And then the next one they showed was a game called Onrush by Codemasters. And for those who don't know, Codemasters know racing games. From the very first Colin McRae Rally right through the Dirt series, they know how to make racing games. They're generally more realistic on the side of racing games. This one just looked ridiculous, bonkers, very action-oriented. You got bikes, you got buggies, and things like that. So it might be one to watch, just because, again, it's Codemasters. They make awesome games. They really do.
Yeah.
So the last one they showed for things that were, content exclusive was Battlefront, Star Wars Battlefront. And again, just like you said, not much that we haven't seen already, right?
Yeah.
So was waiting for some of the stuff, and again, I mentioned at the top of this that I was waiting for a couple of games, and then they hit us. They came back out and said, here are exclusive games for the PlayStation only.
So we got onto they got into the exclusive, and at this point in the conference, I went from sort of like, this is all stuff we've seen before, and this next section, the games they showed next, made me want to get a PlayStation.
Yeah, right?
I'll be honest with you. I was like, there's several games there that I would go buy a console for.
So the first one...
Starting with
Spider-Man.
Game looks incredible.
They showed a lot of cutscene integrated with gameplay. Right? So it was hard to tell what was cutscene, what was gameplay, because it looked so amazing. Now, obviously, some of the non-action-oriented scenes they showed, obviously cutscene with Peter Parker and Mary Jane talking and things like that, and Peter introducing people to Miles Morales, which I thought very interesting, very intriguing, right? Miles being the second Spider-Man after Peter Parker, so makes you wonder where they're even going to go with that game. By the end of the game, is part 2 going to be Miles? I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself. The first one's not out yet.
They really showcased some of the story and the fact that you're going to be following Peter Parker, and it's going to be a story about him, not just you,
right.
Going around as Spider-Man.
Right. It seems very Peter Parker story heavy, and I'm totally fine with that. They have, it's Insomniac Games. They do their research. They know games. They make some of the coolest games. Sunset Overdrive was a launch title for the Xbox One, and was awesome. I loved that game. So you played Sunset.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and the movement in that gets me excited for Spider-Man, because I mean, they know how to do that type of gameplay.
Yeah.
And one thing I thought was very interesting is that when you start off Spider-Man, they mentioned that, you're going to be fully powered pretty much. There's no unlocking new powers. You've been Spider-Man for several years, and they said right when you get into it, you're going to be Spider-Man.
Yep.
Which I really love. I thought that was a really good idea. So I'm super excited. What they showed was beautiful looking. It was, witty with Spider-Man, and the action, the way they do his webbing, grabbing somebody's fist and making him punch somebody else. They did that in the movie as well. I just think it's brilliant. I love the concept of Spider-Man. I love what you can do with his powers. I cannot wait to play this game.
Yeah.
So next up, they showed Detroit Become Human, which is shaping up to be a very interesting game.
Yeah.
This will be the third demo we've seen of it, and it is a completely different demo from what we've seen in other ones. The first time we saw Detroit Become Human, it was like a hostage negotiator android trying to talk a guy down off of a roof with a hostage.
Yep.
The second one was, like an outlaw gang trying to rob something.
Well, the second showing almost seemed like a completely different game,
Right.
almost like they had changed direction on the game since we'd seen it the first time.
Right,
Which
agreed.
wouldn't be unheard of. But then what they showed this time was closer to the type of gameplay we saw in the
very first
one.
time, yeah, which was a Molly-made android that appears to be coming back to somewhere where she used to work with a new memory, with a father and a daughter. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the content on that was kind of uncomfortable.
Yep.
Some domestic violence going on there. So, dad beating up the kid, and it was kind of uncomfortable. Is probably the best word.
Yeah, it's implied that there's some abuse going on, and you, as in the place of the android, obviously can then decide what to do about it. That means you run away, or do you confront the father? Do you try to help the little girl escape, or what have you? But that seems to be the essence of the game: is that you are able to make choices about how to approach the situation, and you have a bunch of different choices, and they will affect the way the things play out. The story isn't set, right? Your actions
Right.
really affect the way the story will go.
Right. And FYI, if you don't help the little girl, you're a psychopath and you should put the game down. Just my opinion. I'm just saying. No, it looked interesting. And again, this is very different from what we've seen in at least from E3.
Yeah.
Right? So next up, they showed God of War with Kratos and his beard and his son. Yes, his beard is a completely different character in this one. And it was sort of the same what we've seen already. I mean, it looks really great. These games always have. The action and the gameplay has always been really solid. At this point, I'm just like, just bring the game out. Bring the game out.
Really.
What they did show was Kratos and his magic Mjolnir-like axe. So he's got like Thor's hammer, but it's his axe. He's launching it at people and it's coming back to him. And the only thing that piqued my interest in the whole thing was when it came up and said early 2018.
Okay.
So that'd be
Yeah,
cool.
that one looked pretty good. That was impressive too.
Right. So then they showed some DLC, which the Frozen Wilds for Horizon Zero Dawn. So, I mean, it looks, again, if you've played Horizons, you know this game is beautiful looking. I've got it on the PS4 Pro in the...
Damn fly again. Right, keep going.
The production value is so high here. So Horizon Zero Dawn, the Frozen Wilds. I don't know if I'll be getting this, and it's not because the game's no good. Again, we just have so much to play. But I will say one thing: I'm super impressed that a year later they're still supporting this game, bringing out some DLC. I think that's very cool, and it also leads into it's probably a good marketing tool for a Game of the Year edition where you can add some additional stuff.
Yep.
But anything that gets that game even more exposure than it already has is all right in my books. Again, if you've not played it, get that game. Once you pick up your PS4 and you're, for Spider-Man, make sure you grab Horizon Zero Dawn as well. You will not be disappointed. And then two more games that they showed. Shadow of the Colossus, which, I mean, it didn't really show much at all. It was either a very small boy or a very large horse. I can't tell. But the proportions looked a little odd. That's just all I'm saying. But you're on a horse, and you end up climbing up these massive legs of what only could be called a fuzzy dragon. I don't know. My descriptive is there, I'm telling you. And you stab it in its back. I don't know. That's all they showed.
I think this is a remake of the original,
Right.
And it looked pretty cool.
It did. I would like to see more though.
But yeah, for sure.
So then the last thing they showed us now, the only reason, like, I mean, I knew this was The Last of Us 2. I knew it going in.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. And Naughty Dog, man, they don't disappoint. Those are, they know how to make a game. Sony has a few of these devs in their back pocket that know how to make a game. And so it opens up with a gang trying to kill a couple of girls, which is awful, just awful. And why am I smiling? Don't ask.
I don't know.
Right to the point where one of the young ladies is getting hit in the arm with a hammer. Like, I mean, it's awful. But I was waiting for Joel to come out and just snap everyone's neck. So just as these guys are about to really hurt these women, an arrow goes right through one of the guys, and in my head I'm like, yes, Joel, go. But it was not Joel. It was a young boy out of nowhere. It was not Joel. And I don't understand at all the context of that entire video. Right. It's like, Last of Us 2. It could have been any game. There was nothing to me that would link it to that series, and that's not a bad thing. I didn't see it coming. I will say that again, even The Last of Us, I have the remaster, the pro version, and it's beautiful. It really is. And this game is looking similar. Again, Naughty Dog really know how to push the system to the limits. The lighting effects, the rain effects were just beautiful. Just beautiful. Mm-hmm. But I'd be very interested to see where they're going with this. I cannot wait to see more. That is a day one purchase for me.
I found, and I'm not the only one from judging from comments online, the content in that trailer was even more disturbing than Detroit Become Human. The violence was pretty graphic.
It was,
and it was bordering on, for me, difficult to watch.
Really?
I mean, we talked before. You sort of become desensitized to this kind of stuff to a certain extent. But it was still, I still felt it was like, yeah, that's for me. It's getting on a bit of a line for the context in which it was shown, and that's part of the sort of the debate that started to come about as a result of this was some people were asking, is this appropriate content for video games to deal with? Not just with Last of Us 2, with the violence there against women, but also with Detroit, you've got child abuse essentially there, and these are pretty heavy subjects, for video games. Now, of course, the argument against that, of course, is that video games are art. It's an art form. They're entertainment, and you see this kind of thing in movies all the time, and you wouldn't really question it in a movie. You can decide to watch the movie or not, same as you can decide to play the games or not. So I don't think that it's an issue that it's not appropriate content for video games. I think it goes more to the way in which the trailers were presented. And this goes back to an issue which I've had with E3 the last little while and other press conferences, where we've got to the point where all these press conferences are just trailer, one after the other.
True.
And it used to be that you used to have the devs come up and they'd give a very long monologue and talk about the game, and then they'd show a bit of it. And you got through far less games that way, and then people complained and said there's too much talking at these press conferences. But I think we've gone too far the other way now, where there's no setup, there's no context for anything. You just get one trailer right after the other. And that's okay if it's sort of a montage of similar ones, but when you have games with very different tones and very serious tones. I mean, in this case, you had Spider-Man, so you've got a comic book kind of lighthearted thing, right into Detroit Become Human, where you've got a girl being abused by her father. Yeah. And just that switch of those two tones within the space of 30 seconds, I think that was a bit jarring for people. And personally, I think what needs to happen is we can find a happy medium here somewhere where you allow some of these trailers to have a little room to breathe, give them some context, give them some setup. You don't have to have a 10-minute developer monologue there, but just enough to recognize that there needs to be a transition here for different tone pieces.
I totally agree. Going from, oh my god, Spider-Man, it's so great, to a 20-year-old helpless girl getting her arms broken with a ball-peen hammer is definitely a little jarring.
Yeah.
Right? Absolutely. I do agree with that. I will say that I felt the most uncomfortable watching the Detroit Become Human. Implied child abuse to me is worse than pretty much anything else I saw. But I completely agree that, given a few minutes to let the previous trailers breathe and to give an intro to the next one, at least just explain the scene we're about to see, I find would go a long way when it comes to the trailers being received. And like you said, I mean, no one says boo about this stuff with movies, but, imagine you saw a trailer for the Care Bears, and then right after that, you saw a trailer for, It Pennywise. They're completely different things. Right. And, it's received a little differently at that time. So, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I think there was an argument made that, the devs aren't going to like this either. Like, do you think that Spider-Man, Insomniac were happy to have their game up against something with a completely different tone like that, which kind of destroys what they'd done? So I think just a bit more thought into these things, and a little more context or setup to some of these where needed. Video games as an art are still evolving. It's still a fairly young medium. We're still figuring things out. Mm-hmm. But I think this is an area where video games can grow a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, and again, to liken to the movies, right? I mean, some of these AAA games cost more than a movie to make, but they're also making more than the Hollywood industry right now. So, I mean, they have the resources, the time to put into this, but like you said, it's still growing, and I think hopefully we'll see a bit of a shift going forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's all we have for this week. Please do leave us your comments on this video. Tell us what you liked or didn't like. Also send in your questions, something for the podcast or anything sort of gaming related. We want to have a mailbag section on future episodes, and we need you guys to send in some questions. You can email them to podcast@silentmajoritygamers.com. You can also follow us for updates on Twitter @SilentMGamers. Or check out our Facebook page, which we just recently launched, and I'll put a link to that in the video description.
There you go.
Please, if you haven't done so already, do subscribe to the channel. We appreciate the subscribes and the likes. Tell your friends. And also, keep an eye out for our Xbox One X unboxing video. Console should be out probably by the time you're able to see this video, and so we hope to have an unboxing video out on release day or maybe the day after.
And you're gonna like this one, guys. Trust me, you're gonna really like this one.
You have never seen an unboxing video quite like the one we're gonna do for Xbox One X. So we'll just leave you with that little teaser. All right. So for Insomniac Matt, I'm Limey Geek. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Bye.
Coming up on this week's podcast, Sony held a small press conference and showed some games at the Paris Games Week conference. I said conference twice. This is terrible.
Need to get out of here and feed you.
Oh, my stomach's got a mind of its own. It doesn't listen to me. Only 2 cheeseburgers? Come on, Matt. I'm fat.
I don't know what to say to that.
No. It'll be one of those days.